Welcome to the place where we learn about and learn from the leaders in our field who are powering human creativity. I am Aaron Dworkin, and this is Arts Engines. Thanks again for joining me here on Arts Engines. Today's guest is Charlie Ortiz, who serves as the executive director of the WHIN Music Community Charter School. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. It is great to be here.
Cool, great. So, you're really doing some amazing work at WHIN. And so I wanted to kind of start off, if you could just share, especially for our audience who may not be familiar, kind of the history of WHIN. It's a newer institution and kind of all of that. And I'll just share some additional background for our audience that you come with of extraordinary experience in arts education, in education overall, especially you had your time at Harlem Children's Zone, which has done some extraordinary work. And so let's kind of just start there with, can you just share a little background on WHIN itself?
Yeah, definitely. So the WHIN Music Community Charter School is actually the first school in the world founded on the principles of El Sistema that we know of. There might be some others out there, and if so, please get in touch with us because we always like making friends. But what's really interesting about our founding story is that we are the organic outgrowth of a weekend and after school El Sistema program that opened up in the Heights, Washington Heights that is, in New York. Back in 2012. And ultimately the families and the staff of that program really enjoyed it and started asking themselves, what could we do more? How could we make this more? And one of the ideas that got tossed around was, let's create a school with music at its core that's taken as seriously as math and as literacy and science and everything else. Wow. A lot of my history, as you mentioned, comes from music education, arts education, and school administration. So I joined that team. We wrote the final version of the application that was approved by the state of New York in 2016. We opened our doors 1 year later in 2017. And for the past 5 years, our school has been growing rapidly and doing some really arts-based, powerful education for students and families in the Heights.
So it's really amazing and great work. And as I kind of think back on that, it seems like probably at least half of your time kind of open to students has been during the pandemic, which probably made things even more interesting.
Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, the pandemic was definitely something that caught us all a little bit off guard, but I'm so impressed with how our staff, our families, our students, everyone really put their best foot forward and was able to manage it really successfully. We still had, like a 97% daily attendance rate during virtual learning during even the height of the pandemic. So in my opinion, although it's been a hard time and I don't want to repeat it, I am really proud about the resiliency and the hard work and just the excellence of everyone within the community during that time.
That's awesome. And so also, just before I want to get into some aspects of your leadership role, but also can you kind of share with us, how does, this very unique school, and in terms of its founding and coming off of the El Sistema model, how does that actually play out in the day-to-day experience for students? So how would a student's schedule be different, or the incorporation of music different at WHIN?
Great question. So, there is so much that's different. So, El Sistema, for some of your listeners that may not know, is a social inclusion through music education program designed to end poverty. And El Sistema in Venezuela, which is where it's from, is really a government-supported and full country initiative, which is the system, El Sistema, right? And so as a El Sistema-inspired organization, what we try to do is really use the philosophies of El Sistema to inform every part of our pedagogy and our practices on a daily basis. So specifically within our music program, we have 2 periods of music every single day for every child. One of them is in the vocal ensemble, which is a choir, and the other is in the instrumental ensemble or the orchestra. And we use them as laboratories to not just teach music, but to also teach those 21st century skills that students will need to really be successful in their future, especially things like how to work together, especially in the future that our students will inhabit. how to persevere through challenges, how to have critical thinking, and how to really have a group of people, their peers, solve various challenges. And then those things extend into the non-music classroom also. We have, some character building programs that we use that we developed ourselves based around the WHIN ways of being that really help students and teachers engender these ways of being that create citizen artists who use whether either music by writing a song or performing something, or their literacy or their math or their science or whatever, to make the world around them a better place.
Wow, absolutely incredible. And definitely really kind of changing this this aspect and the ways in which we approach music education. And are you finding yourself embraced or welcomed by the community, by your local community?
Without a doubt. And so I've watched this, grow from an idea at a coffee shop to what it is today, with hundreds upon people who are supporting us. Our students and families and our staff are just the tip of the iceberg. There are so many local, stakeholders. There are so many state stakeholders, and there's so many folks that around the country and around the world have reached out to us over the past 5 years to really learn about our model and see just how we are doing, especially music education, differently. And so, yeah, I'm so deeply humbled by how much our model and these ideas has resonated across music education and education.
Cool, awesome. So I wanted to pivot a little to your leadership. And one of the things we always kind of cover here on Arts Engines is kind of, this aspect of leadership, giving a window into people in leadership roles so that all of our audience can really see, that's what a job like that really is. That's kind of a president or an executive director, et cetera. So a lot of people, of course, are familiar with a principal at a school and the role of principal, et cetera, but you have the role of executive director. Could you kind of share a little bit both about that leadership structure you have at WHIN and kind of what's your day-to-day life as an executive director of a school?
Well, my day-to-day is different every single day, and definitely every single year, but it's so interesting. And, we have a very standard model for charters, I feel, with executive director, a principal, and then a strong leadership team based on content. And so that feels pretty standard. The day-to-day really does change, especially every year as we grow, right? So in the first year, I was doing a lot. Right. And as we grow, so many folks have joined the team and have, really stepped up. And so as we've grown, we've become less flat, and we really try to empower folks to handle various parts of the organization to make it efficient, effective, and preferably with less stress from everybody. My day-to-day, is a few key things, whether it be finances or staffing or enrollment. But the real, part of it that I would want to, potentially share with someone who's interested in getting into executive leadership types of positions is the idea of leading the ship, right, in a direction. And over the, 5 or 6 or 7 years since I wrote the charter, I really come to understand that the highest skill set or value, I believe, for someone in a senior leadership position is to be able to hear and see all of the various perspectives that are going on within their work or their organization or their community, and really assessing all of those things, putting them in a blender ultimately, and kind of sorting out how to move that entire group of people towards a singular direction that is in line with our mission and values, day in and day out and year over year, and ultimately seeing that 5-year plan, when folks are still dealing with what's going on today, and trying to put all of us in a direction to achieve that together. And to me, that's the real crux of leadership, moving a great mass of people towards a single outcome, even if that outcome is not 100% clearly defined just yet.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. I love that approach. And I'm sure a part of your role too is kind of the external facing, looking out to the community, out to the field. And as you look out to the field, and if there's others who are looking at their own educational programs and going, we really want to, we want to step this up. We want to maybe take a few key steps to evolve our own music education programming. Is there kind of a top one or two things that you would encourage or suggest to others out there that they could really do to incorporate or to evolve their own music education programming?
Yeah, so we actually have had a few folks reach out to us with a very similar question, and there were very different types of organizations. And one of the things that I'm deeply appreciative for WHIN is that we created it with this concept. And there's so much about the inception of an idea that everything else is built upon. And so for organizations that may find that they're, coming up against a more challenging systemic or structural component, I would encourage them to really try and understand that component, to figure out the pros of that and the value of that, because it came from somewhere. And then really trying to articulate how, not changing that, but rather maybe adding to that or adjusting to that or making these small modifications could help them in their arts work or in their music work or arts advocacy work. And thinking about those small changes over time, really adding up to big impact. I would really encourage folks to do that. And then for those other organizations that are maybe just starting or have a lot of systemic support and their infrastructure already built around it, I think it, without knowing the specifics, my advice would be to listen to the stakeholders and all of the different stakeholders. Be clear about their values and like the organization values, and then start to backwards plan or backwards map a 5-year, a 10-year, or some other correct amount of time for their organization plan, with key metrics and of success and benchmarks of success, and then work towards that every day. Celebrate when things go excellent, and when things go less than excellent, use it as an opportunity just to learn, and to grow from that as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, unfortunately, we're just about out of time, but I always like to ask of my guests, right, because it's such a key part of leadership. You referenced going through the pandemic and all that there, and especially building up a school literally from scratch, out of, if you will, thin air, and creating such a leadership program. There's got to be some tough days. There's got to be some days where things are really feeling overwhelming. In those moments when times are the toughest, how do you find strength? Where do you draw inspiration from when times are the toughest as a leader?
It's a fantastic question. I feel very fortunate to have some fantastic folks around me, folks within the school, folks in my personal networks, folks on my board, and just a really good support system. So they're definitely a resource that I go to often. I also go back to El Sistema. Maestro Jose Abreu has a quote that I think about literally almost every day. And it says, an orchestra is a community where the essential and exclusive feature is that it is the only community that comes together with the fundamental objective of agreeing with itself. Therefore, the person who plays in an orchestra begins to live the life and the experience of agreement. And we literally train every staff on that and so many El Sistema principles. And I think about it every day because in those challenging times, that helps me remember that we are, committed to this work together. And at the end of the day, it is that ensemble or that community that is where all of our strength and all of our weakness lies. And so the more that I can give into that life of agreement and work with the folks around me, the more I start to see the vision and the mission come to life even more. And so in the most hard times, I focus on that. I focus on recommitting to our values, and 10 out of 10 times, I'm very quickly shown just how valuable living a life of agreement with those in my community are. And that pushes me forward quite a lot. Wow.
Charlie Ortiz, you truly are one of the arts engines who is powering human creativity in our world. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you. It's been great talking. I hope we get a chance to do it again. And if you're ever in New York, feel free to stop on by. We'd love to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much.
Thank you.